March 7, 1945, 15:47 hours. Ludendorff Bridge, Remagen, Germany. General Feldmarschall Albert Kesselring received the telephone call that would validate everything German intelligence had dismissed about American capabilities for the past 3 years. The Americans had captured a Rhine bridge intact, not destroyed, not damaged beyond repair, but functional and already swarming with Sherman tanks. Through his headquarters window at Bad Nauheim, Kesselring could see staff officers frantically plotting movements on oversized maps, but the mathematics were already written in invisible ink across those charts. Every calculation pointed to the same inescapable conclusion. Germany had lost this war not through courage or tactical brilliance, but through catastrophic miscalculation of American industrial capacity. The bridge at Remagen wasn't just a tactical prize. It was a symbol of everything the Third Reich had gotten wrong about the nation they'd dismissed as too soft, too diverse, too democratic to wage modern industrial warfare. The intelligence failure that doomed Germany. December 1938, Reich Air Ministry, Berlin. Major Friedrich von Bottker, Wehrmacht military attaché in Washington since 1933, submitted his annual intelligence assessment. The document, preserved in German military archives, contained observations that would prove prophetically accurate. American war production potential exceeds all European nations combined. Their automotive industry alone could produce more military vehicles than the entire Reich. Democratic mobilization, while slower to initiate, achieves totals totalitarian systems cannot match. Adolf Hitler's response, recorded by his adjutant Fritz Wiedemann, was dismissive contempt. America is a mongrel nation of inferior races, incapable of sustaining military effort. Their Jews and Negroes will collapse under the discipline required for modern warfare. This ideological blindness would cost Germany everything. The sword versus the factory. The Wehrmacht entered World War II as the most tactically sophisticated army in human history. German officers studied Clausewitz and Moltke, perfected combined arms doctrine, pioneered blitzkrieg tactics that revolutionized warfare. Their training systems produced soldiers who could think independently, officers who understood operational art, and a military culture that emphasized initiative and excellence. But excellence without resources is just slow defeat. By 1943, every German soldier knew the brutal arithmetic. An American infantry division consumed 750 tons of supplies daily. A German division received 200 tons on good days, 50 tons on bad ones. American artillery fired without restriction. German gunners rationed shells like misers hoarding gold. American truck convoys stretched to the horizon. German armies still depended on 150,000 horses that ate 30 tons of fodder daily and couldn't be mass-produced in Detroit factories. The Remagen Bridge demonstrated this disparity with mathematical precision. The radio revolution nobody saw coming. March 7, 1945, 1600 hours. Within 30 minutes of securing the Ludendorff Bridge, every American division within 100 kilometers knew about it. Not through courier motorcycles or telephone lines that should be cut, but through SCR 508 and SCR 528 radios that turned information into instant battlefield advantage. Lieutenant Colonel Leonard Engerman, commanding the 14th Tank Battalion that seized the bridge, transmitted directly to Combat Command B headquarters. Within 5 minutes, General Hogue knew. Within 15, General Courtney Hodges at 1st Army Headquarters had the information. Within an hour, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force in Versailles was repositioning entire corps to exploit the breakthrough. German forces attempting to organize counterattacks depended on telephone landlines that American artillery systematically destroyed. Their radio communications, using amplitude modulation technology that was obsolete by 1940 standards, couldn't penetrate the electromagnetic chaos of modern battlefields. While American commanders coordinated divisions across 50 kilometers in real time, German officers sent motorcycle couriers through artillery barrages, each message delayed by hours or lost entirely. Oberst Otto Skorzeny, Germany's commando genius assigned to recapture Remagen, described the communications catastrophe in his post-war memoirs. "We attempted to coordinate 6 separate battle groups for simultaneous assault. American aircraft destroyed our communication cables within hours. Our radio trucks, few that remained operational, couldn't maintain contact through the interference. By the time orders reached forward units, the Americans had already reinforced positions we'd hoped to surprise. We were fighting blind against an enemy who could see the entire battlefield." The SCR-508 radios in every Sherman tank represented technological superiority as decisive as superior armor. These frequency modulation systems, carrying crystal-controlled precision and 25 watts of transmission power, cut through battlefield chaos with clarity German amplitude modulation radios couldn't approach. When German tank commanders screamed orders into static-filled handsets, American crews coordinated attacks across broken terrain with conversational ease. The proximity fuse, death from above. March 8, 1945, 0430 hours. German forces attempted their first major counterattack to retake the bridge. The 11th Panzer Division, veteran units that had survived years of Eastern Front combat, advanced through the Eifel Forest in standard assault formation. They expected conventional artillery, the kind that buried itself in earth or exploded against tree trunks, dangerous but survivable for troops who knew how to seek cover. But instead, they encountered something that violated every tactical principle they'd learned. The shells exploded in mid-air, precisely 30 to 50 feet above their positions. Each detonation created a cone of steel fragments that covered areas impossible for ground-burst weapons. Foxholes offered no protection. Trees provided no cover. The forest canopy itself became a weapon as exploding shells shattered branches into thousands of wooden projectiles traveling at lethal velocities. Hauptmann Werner Pluskat, whose 352nd Artillery Regiment attempted to support the attack, watched through field glasses as entire companies simply ceased to exist. The American shells burst above our men like fireworks, but far more terrible. I saw an entire platoon disappear in 3 seconds, not killed by direct hits, but shredded by fragments raining from above. Our medical officers had no experience treating such wounds. Men died from injuries we didn't understand how to address. The VT proximity fuse, containing miniature radar systems that detected ground distance and detonated at optimal height, represented American scientific achievement that Germany couldn't match, despite pioneering the concept. German engineers had developed similar technology by 1940, but Hitler's order canceling all weapons programs requiring more than 6 months for production had terminated development. By 1945, American factories were producing 40,000 proximity fuses daily, while German scientists could only examine captured examples and declare them impossible. The mathematics of lethality were stark. Conventional artillery shells required direct hits or near misses to inflict casualties. Proximity-fused shells increased lethal radius by factor of 50. German forces attacking the Remagen bridgehead faced artillery that could clear entire grid squares of troops in minutes, with no tactical countermeasure beyond retreat or death. The production miracle that broke German mathematics. March 9, 1945. General Feldmarschall Kesselring reviewed intelligence estimates of American forces defending Remagen. The numbers seemed impossible, yet reconnaissance confirmed them. 3 infantry divisions, 2 armored divisions, supporting artillery that outnumbered German guns 8-1, all positioned and supplied within 48 hours of capturing the bridge. German logistics doctrine, perfected over decades of military science, stated that moving a single division required 3 days minimum. Supplying it across damaged infrastructure needed established supply dumps, functioning railroads, and careful accumulation of resources. Yet Americans had accomplished in 2 days what German planning said needed 2 weeks. The explanation lay in capabilities German military theorists had dismissed as wasteful excess. The Red Ball Express, that improvised truck convoy system that had supplied Patton's advance across France, had evolved into systematic logistics dominance. By March 1945, American supply convoys operated 24 hours daily, carrying 20,000 tons of supplies over roads that German forces had systematically destroyed during retreat. When bridges were demolished, American engineers built replacements in hours using prefabricated components. When roads were cratered, American bulldozers carved new routes through fields, while existing convoys detoured without losing rhythm. A single American truck company, the 3916th Quartermaster Company, typical of dozens supporting First Army, moved more tonnage daily than an entire German division's supply train could manage weekly. Their GMC 6x6 trucks, produced at a rate of 1 every 10 minutes at factories across America, represented industrial capacity that made German production look artisanal. Oberst Hans von Luck, commanding the 125th Panzer Grenadier Regiment ordered to counterattack Remagen, described the supply disparity in his memoir. "My regiment required 50 tons of supplies daily to remain combat effective. We received perhaps 15 tons on good days, nothing for weeks at a time. American units we faced consumed 750 tons daily and never seemed to lack anything. Their artillery fired thousands of shells, while we rationed dozens. Their trucks brought hot meals to frontline positions. Our men ate cold rations when they ate at all. We weren't fighting an enemy army. We were fighting an industrial civilization." The human dimension, democracy's secret weapon. The German military tradition emphasized hierarchy, discipline, and obedience. Officers made decisions, enlisted men executed them without question. This system had produced victories across Europe when German forces possessed material superiority and tactical initiative. But at Remagen, that rigid hierarchy encountered American military culture that emphasized initiative at every level. When Sergeant Alexander Drabick became the first American soldier across the Ludendorff Bridge, he did so without orders from officers who were still assessing the situation. When the bridge's demolition charges failed to destroy the structure, American engineers immediately began cutting cables and removing remaining explosives, nobody waiting for formal authorization through chains of command. This decentralized decision-making, derided by German officers as lack of discipline, proved devastatingly effective in fluid combat situations. While German units waited for orders from higher headquarters, American soldiers and junior officers made battlefield decisions that exploited opportunities before they disappeared. The democratic culture that produced this initiative also created the most diverse military force in history. At Remagen, African-American engineers from the 552nd Engineer Heavy Pontoon Battalion worked alongside white infantry to clear explosives. Hispanic soldiers from the Southwest served with Jewish soldiers from New York and farm boys from Iowa in units that represented every American region and ethnicity. German racial ideology predicted this diversity would create weakness, not strength. Hitler had proclaimed that mongrel armies of inferior races couldn't match German racial purity. Instead, American diversity proved to be force multiplier. The engineer who'd worked construction in Chicago brought skills the farmer from Kansas lacked. The mechanic from Detroit could repair vehicles that baffled college-educated officers.
The tactical problems that stymied one soldier's background found solutions in another's different experience. The Luftwaffe that wasn't there. March 10, 1945. Dawn. Hermann Göring, Reich Marshal and commander of the Luftwaffe, received hourly updates on the Remagen situation. Every report demanded the same response: destroy the bridge with overwhelming air power. Every response encountered the impossible reality: the Luftwaffe no longer existed as effective fighting force. On paper, Germany still possessed hundreds of aircraft: Me-109s hidden in forests, Me-262 jets scattered across improvised airfields, bombers converted to reconnaissance aircraft. But paper strength meant nothing without fuel, without trained pilots, without the industrial base to maintain complex machines. The few Luftwaffe sorties that reached Remagen encountered American air defenses that made daylight bombing suicidal. The bridge was defended by more anti-aircraft guns than had protected entire German cities in 1943. Proximity-fused shells that had devastated German ground forces proved even more lethal against aircraft. German pilots flying their final missions, many with less than 50 hours of flight training, faced American fighters piloted by veterans with 300-plus hours who'd been shooting down Luftwaffe aircraft for years. On March 7th alone, the Luftwaffe lost 23 aircraft attempting to bomb the bridge, destroying nothing, while American fighters added to their victory tallies with almost casual efficiency. By March 10th, the Luftwaffe commanders stopped sending daylight missions, their aircraft reduced to ineffectual night harassment that accomplished nothing beyond adding to casualty lists. Meanwhile, American aircraft operated with complete impunity. P-47 Thunderbolts flew close air support missions directly over German positions. P-51 Mustangs ranged across Germany hunting any vehicle that moved. C-47 transports delivered supplies to advanced airfields with less concern for enemy action than airline pilots showed for weather. The air superiority that Germany had wielded so effectively in 1940 now belonged completely to the Americans, who used it with methodical efficiency that ground German forces into paralysis.
The final German offensive, Operation Lumberjack, reversed. March 14, 1945. General Feldmarschall Albert Kesselring assembled Germany's last significant armored reserve for final attempt to destroy the Remagen bridgehead. The 11th Panzer Division, 9th Panzer Division, and elements of 3 infantry divisions, approximately 50,000 troops supported by 100 tanks and 200 artillery pieces. By Wehrmacht standards of 1945, this represented significant combat power. Against American forces holding Remagen, it was a mathematical impossibility disguised as military operation. American intelligence detected German preparations before they began. Radio intercepts, aerial reconnaissance, and local informants provided complete picture of German dispositions and intentions. By the time German forces moved into attack positions, American artillery had already registered coordinates. American reinforcements had already deployed to threatened sectors. American supply dumps had already stockpiled the ammunition needed to repel any assault. The attack launched at 0400 hours on March 15th under cover of darkness and morning fog. German infantry advanced through difficult terrain, using small unit tactics perfected through years of combat. German tanks, most of them Panzer IVs that were individually superior to American Shermans, moved in coordinated formations that demonstrated tactical sophistication American crews couldn't match in straight fights. None of it mattered. American artillery, guided by radar and forward observers equipped with radios that actually worked, blanketed German assembly areas with proximity-fused shells before attacks fully developed.
German tanks advancing through the Eifel Hills encountered American tank destroyers positioned in ambush with clear fields of fire. American fighter bombers, operating in clear weather that arrived as fog lifted, caught German columns in the open and destroyed them with rockets and bombs. By nightfall, March 15th, German forces had gained nothing while losing 5,000 casualties and 23 tanks. American forces had expanded the bridgehead by 3 kilometers while losing 800 casualties. The exchange rate was unsustainable for Germany, comfortable for America. Oberst Gunther Reichhelm, operations officer for Army Group B, wrote in his journal, "We attacked with everything remaining. They repulsed us with casual effort, as man swats flies. Our best tactical performance achieves nothing against their material superiority. We are samurai with swords fighting machine guns. Honor means nothing to mathematics." The bridge's collapse and Germany's future. March 17, 1945, 1500 hours. The Ludendorff Bridge, weakened by German demolition attempts, American traffic, and continuing German artillery, finally collapsed into the Rhine. 28 American engineers died in the collapse, bringing total American casualties for the Remagen operation to approximately 3,000 killed and wounded. German casualties exceeded 10,000, with another 30,000 captured as the bridgehead expanded. More significantly, the bridge's collapse meant nothing strategically. In the 10 days since its capture, American engineers had constructed 3 pontoon bridges and 1 tradway bridge across the Rhine. American forces holding the bridgehead numbered 50,000 and controlled territory extending 20 kilometers beyond the river. The Rhine, Germany's last major defensive barrier in the West, had been breached irreversibly. American forces were now positioned to drive into the German heartland with nothing to stop them except exhausted defenders, depleted ammunition, and mathematical certainty of defeat. The Reckoning. Why Germany Lost. The Battle of Remagen distilled into microcosm why Germany lost World War II. Not from lack of courage, tactical skill, or military tradition, but from a fundamental miscalculation of modern industrial warfare's requirements. Germany had built the world's finest sword, while America constructed the world's largest factory. When those two philosophies collided at Remagen, the outcome was never in doubt. Every advantage Germany possessed in March 1945, tactical expertise, individual equipment quality, defensive terrain, meant nothing against American industrial capacity that could overwhelm quality with quantity, replace losses immediately, and sustain operations indefinitely. The Wehrmacht radio that couldn't penetrate battlefield interference lost to the SCR-508 that turned every American tank into a network node. The German artillery that rationed shells lost to American guns that fired thousands of proximity-fused rounds without concern for supply. The German tank that was individually superior lost to 10 American Shermans that coordinated attacks through working radios. The German soldier who was individually tougher lost to American logistics that delivered hot meals, medical care, and ammunition without interruption. Most fundamentally, German racial ideology that predicted American weakness through diversity lost to American reality, where that diversity created unexpected strength. The nation Hitler had dismissed as mongrel proved far stronger than the master race that started the war.
May 8, 1945. Germany surrendered unconditionally. The war that began with German confidence in superior tactics, training, and will had ended in complete defeat delivered by American industrial might, technological innovation, and democratic mobilization. General Feldmarschall Kesselring, imprisoned at Nuremberg, gave his final assessment. "We were better soldiers. They were better at war." We perfected tactical excellence while they perfected mass production. We believed spirit would overcome material. We were wrong. In modern warfare, the nation that can produce more tanks, more shells, more everything will win regardless of individual courage or tactical skill. The bridge at Remagen stands as monument to this truth, not the physical structure, which collapsed, but the idea it represented. American industrial democracy could accomplish what German tactical genius could not. Germany had laughed at American capabilities in 1941, dismissing the United States as too soft, too divided, too democratic to wage serious war. By 1945, that laughter had died in the ruins of cities destroyed by American bombers, on battlefields where American artillery had decided outcomes, and at bridges, like Remagen, where American engineering had made the impossible routine. The final lesson was written in rubble across Germany. Underestimate democracy at your peril. Free peoples, when united by existential threat, can mobilize resources and achieve production miracles that totalitarian regimes cannot match. The arsenal of democracy had buried the Third Reich under an avalanche of steel, aluminum, and high explosives, proving that in industrial warfare, the nation that builds more wins more. Germany had brought a sword to a factory fight and wondered why it lost.